Aloha loves, this is Yemaya Indira at the Embrace.life, mentoring to the heart of the matter. Today I wanted to share with you some thoughts about tainted grief versus pure grief. But before we go there, I'd like to tell you where I'm coming from. I believe that it's really important to know the root of your craft, learn the traditions. Let's say Picasso was incredible and was able to maybe paint like Michelangelo. But once he had secured the roots and the foundation of his craft, he then brought his magic. And even though, it's not my aesthetic pleasure, I really admired him because knowing where he came from, like he could master the tradition, and then he went and created his own alchemical magic with, what he had to share with the world. So I really strongly believe, in that path for myself, maybe because I come from Europe, and I studied traditionally, and then, just like went loose with everything I've learned over the years. So with a very strong somatic background, somatic psychology and somatic body work, now that's me improvising, bringing my own alchemy, finding a way to speak about stuff that you might have heard differently, but it didn't get just like really to connect with your heart and with your understanding, and perhaps the way that I'm phrasing it today, inspired from my work directly with students and clients, over this month actually. That's where I get my aha moments, is when I'm working with people. And then I wanted to share that with you and see if that would be helpful for you. So regarding the grief journey and what I call tainted grief and pure grief. So this is my little board here. So the tainted grief that you see here, that's the mind. The mind is running in circle in the tainted grief. And the tainted grief is what we learned in our childhood as we grew up, and the pain and the trauma and the anything that was less than empowering, and loving, created some patterns within ourselves. And when we are being met with new grief, when there's been like a deep, sudden loss, for example, something that really took us by surprise, we have this protection mechanism of the tainted grief that will connect with everything we lived before, okay? Everything that we haven't processed yet, okay? That is still living in our body, in our mind, in our samskaras, in the patterns of our way of interpreting a situation. All this with the current new grief, the new trauma, the new loss, is going to be how we're going to respond. And that's actually, it's well done, because it is protecting us from the impact of this immediate loss that might be way too much for us to take in one gulp, in one sitting. So we're the mind running in circle in the tainted grief. This happened because yeah. But ultimately, we need to be able to resolve that tainted grief so we can access the pure grief, what's really happening right now. Okay? Because when we get to that place, it's like a vase. That's why I have two vases here. It's like a vase. When you're able to do the correct mourning process, the grieving process, that vase is going to fill up with your tears, your sorrow, your rituals. It's going to fill up until it's going to get full. And when it's going to get full, you're going to be done grieving. you're going to be able to open a new chapter. My teacher, one of my big mentor, Marion Rosen, from the Rosen Method Bodywork, said that when she escaped Nazi Germany and lost her family, and she landed in California, in Berkeley, she cried every single day for 3-4 years. And then one day she woke up and there was no more tears there. She was ready to move on. So that's that vase that just fills up with the proper amount of mourning. So how do we go from the tainted grief to the pure grief? Forgiveness, I think, is definitely the first tool. Forgiving ourselves, forgiving the circumstances, forgiving our family, whoever, an abuser, but ultimately forgiving Source for putting us in that situation. And then in other places you've seen me spoke about the different type of losses. There's loss of innocence, a loss of freedom, loss of power, etc., etc. That's another one. Now, when the trauma happened in a very early childhood circumstances, that trauma and the protective patterns have crystallized, and that's why the importance of somatic bodywork is like it helps, taking the crystals out and recreating movement in the body, movement into the muscle groups that have helped us cope with what happened. So that's why people have amazing breakthrough with somatic bodywork, yoga, dance as medicine, plant as medicine, because it's working on a cellular level to undo the crystallization of the trauma. So that's now, we're slowly going to be able to reach the pure grief and do a pure mourning work. And let that vase fill up. Have the courage and the ability to do that work little bit by little bit. Because we can't take it sometimes, the pain is so huge, so big. There are losses that are so difficult. We can't just take them in one session, right? In one platter, in one moment. It has to be done little bit by little bit by little bit, with the proper teamwork and the proper elements of a journey of healing. So, I welcome you into the journey from tainted grief to pure grief, remembering that forgiveness opens the space for grace. Opens the space for grace. And then grace can help you and support your journey back to wholeness. Not that grieving is taking you away from your wholeness, but let's say back to that sense of vitality and willingness to meet the world with everything you've got. Until we meet again, thank you for listening. Aloha.